when I grew up, the internet was starting to become a household thing. And with that came all of the benefits of having access to the World Wide Web. And that meant you could communicate with people from all around the world in different ways. Meaning sharing files, computer files that people have. Now, I think that that is perfectly fine. That should not be illegal. In fact, I think it should be illegal for that to be illegal, because to restrict file sharing would be like restricting letting your friends borrow your video game or have a copy of a video game that you have, which would mean that CD burners would be restricted and programs that copy files would be restricted. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many layers to this bullshit of why I think that this should not be illegal. Pirating. It's called pirating, but it's really just file sharing. Because it's giving the company power over property that they don't own, right? You're not only telling the person that bought your software or your music or your files or whatever, your game, you're not only telling them that they can't do whatever they want with that product that they purchased, but you're also telling them that they can't use other products they have purchased, not through you, that has nothing to do with you, what they're allowed to do with it. Like, if I bought a CD burner, back in the day, there were CD burners, and then I bought your game, and you're telling me I can't burn your game and give it to a friend, not only are you telling me that I can't do what I want with your game that I bought from you and it's supposed to be mine. I could break it if I want to and throw it in the trash. You're not allowed to tell me what I can and can't do with it. But you're also telling me that I can't use my CD burner. So you just want control over all of my products. That's one of the reasons, one of the main reasons why I am against the illegalization of file sharing, or as they like to call it, pirating. Anyway, that was kind of a long fucking intro. A bunch of people probably turned off now because like, this guy fucking talks too much. Who the fuck is this idiot?
The 2010s were the golden age of piracy. BitTorrent accounted for a third of all internet traffic.
Sorry, man. Sorry. I feel so bad, dude. Whatever, man. This is my fucking channel. The original video's in the description if you don't want to watch it with me. Alright, it's that simple. Okay. We used to use BearShare and LimeWire. There was another one that I can't remember the name of. BearShare and LimeWire, and we'd download fucking... I remember downloading like a Slipknot song, and it took forever, dude, because we had dial-up. We didn't have high-speed internet yet. It took like 30 minutes to an hour to download one song. And that was only if other people that had the file were also online for you to like grab the files from. And then what I think I might have downloaded some Brazilian thing too that involved a pony and a really hot chick. Man, she was really hot. I don't know what she was doing, why she was doing that for. What?
LimeWire had more monthly users than Facebook, and the Pirate Bay was the only
nothing.
video store in town where you were sure to find what you were looking for. Hypothetically, of course. The world was slowly switching from physical to digital media, and even people who weren't particularly tech-savvy realized that digital goods could be replaced endlessly with practically zero marginal cost. At its peak, 95% of all music downloads were pirated because it had become cheaper and, above all else, an easier way to fill up large digital libraries that were being made possible by cheap digital storage. But then, it just stopped. Since 2012, the internet has gotten faster, storage has gotten cheaper, and people have become more comfortable with computers, which should have just accelerated a growth trend. But it didn't. Since 2015, peer-to-peer file sharing has collapsed in popularity, and you might think you already know why. Streaming services like Spotify and Netflix were just a better, easier, and safer way to access content. And now, as these services have become markedly worse and simultaneously more expensive, piracy is making a comeback. It seems pretty simple, right? The only problem is that's not the whole story. Realistically, these
What is the whole story? Because that's what I think. That I think this is the reason why that people stopped doing it, but also because there were so many stupid ass ad campaigns before movies and shit that says pirating is stealing is stealing. It's no.
companies knew this day would come. It was just really important that they could pretend it wouldn't.
For a lot of people, they've decided it's time to cut back.
But legitimately, it might be time to cancel some subscriptions, and I'm probably going to have to cancel some.
Some of them I'm not using, and it's just wasting money.
There's so much.
I had a ESPN Plus subscription to watch UFC fights. And then UFC during 2020 and 2021 and all that shit, they decided we're going to up our price of the pay-per-views from this dollar amount to all the way up to this dollar amount. And I was like, wow, that's fucking expensive for a pay-per-view whenever they're throwing up like 2 or 3 pay-per-views per month. Like, that's a lot of money. So that kind of turned me off from paying for UFC. I still watch UFC, by the way, but and then the nail in the coffin for me to end that subscription was I got an email from the ESPN or Disney, owned by Disney now, saying that they're increasing their subscription price. I was like, nah, cancel. And now I just I still watch UFC fights. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say is I still watch the fights. Cause fuck that.
Many of these, it's hard to keep track.
At that point, that's an adversarial relationship. I don't want to pay people to enter adversarial relationships.
We aim, as I said, for this business to be a growth business for the company with margins that our shareholders will feel good about.
So what really made piracy go away and what's really bringing it back might sound simple, but there's actually a bit more going on. First and foremost, the majority of people actually would like to acquire their media legally as long as it was easy and not ridiculously expensive. Most reasonable people understand that it costs time and money to produce a song, film a movie, or develop a video game, and the people involved in these projects do need to be compensated or else they are just not going to make them. Even people who frequent the high seas, so to speak, know this better than anybody else. A survey coming out of Australia at the peak of online piracy found that people who pirated content were actually more likely to pay for it if it was available. In a finding that really ages the study, online pirates were far more likely to pay for movies and music through iTunes or QuickFix. This was because people who pirated content were just more likely to consume content overall, and most of them would only make the trip to the Bay if they couldn't find what they were looking for more legitimately.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the companies got fucking greedy, like the example I gave with ESPN Plus. There was no reason for them to increase their price. At least no legitimate reason that I thought. And then also, I used to have a Hulu subscription back in the day. A basic Hulu subscription gave you access to everything. Oh, fuck, my alarm. Like Hulu and Netflix and all that shit. Netflix changed it several times. Netflix used to give you access to everything on Netflix for this price, and then they switched it to, oh, either you can watch movies or you can have this type of account. You can't have both. It's like, oh, either your account gives you digital streaming or rent movies. You can't have both digital and free rentals or something like that. I'm probably butchering what I'm saying right now, but Hulu, I remember there was a deal going on with Hulu, and I bought one of the subscription packages, And there was still a bunch of fucking ads playing before all my shows. And I was like, why am I getting ads? I'm paying for the subscription. Like, I'm already giving you money, and yet they wanted more money by double dipping. They want your subscription money plus ad revenue by playing ads, even to people who have subscriptions. So companies got fucking greedy, raised their prices for no reason, put ads whenever there didn't need to be ads. It's there, and these are the people that tell you, don't pirate. Pirating is bad. Don't steal our shows. The people need to get paid. Nah, motherfucker. Fuck you.
So there were two things that changed after 2013. Sure, there were a few high-profile crackdowns on some of these sites, but even the regulators themselves knew they were just playing a game of whack-a-mole. One of the most downloaded files on the Pirate Bay was the Pirate Bay, a complete copy of this site with all of the addresses that could be set up by basically anybody with some basic server hardware in the event that the authorities took down the original site. But then came along the streaming sites that, thanks to faster internet speeds, could let users watch content on demand without granting them direct access to digital files which could then be copied and shared illegally. The big thing was that these options were just so easy compared to piracy, and so cheap compared to buying songs or movies one by one that it just didn't really make sense to bother with anything else. Nowadays, that's clearly changed. There are dozens of streaming services that are each getting more and more expensive every year. The movies and shows that you watch are being split up over different providers. The services themselves are getting worse by introducing ads and pushing less relevant content. And on top of all of that, it's just not that easy anymore. Even individual TV shows have certain seasons split up over different streaming services, and the first step in sitting down to watch a movie these days is to Google what streaming service has the 1984 release of Gremlins, and if you're unlucky, what streaming service plus what VPN combo will get you the movie you want to watch. If you're already going through all that effort, it gets really tempting to just replace streaming services with your port of choice, because in most cases, it will just be easier. So yeah, streaming services were cheap and easy, which killed the need for piracy. But then they slowly became expensive and terrible, which brought it back. Pretty straightforward, right? Wrong. It's easy to...
Oh, okay. I mean, that's... He's saying wrong in the video, but that's my fucking reasoning why I, you know, that's my reason. Besides moral reasons, that I believe the opposite of what the anti-pirate people believe. They believe it should be illegal to share files a certain way. I believe that it should be illegal to make that illegal, because for what I explained in the video. So it's like I have a moral obligation to be a pirate.
To write this whole thing off as just dumb companies being needlessly greedy to their own peril. And while that's definitely part of the problem, there is a lot more to it than that. Music streaming by comparison is decent. There are multiple services, but almost all of them have almost all of the music that you would possibly be looking for. As a result, nobody really bothers to pirate songs anymore, which is particularly impressive when you remember that just 15 years ago, 95% of music was being downloaded illegally. Artists have not been thrilled about the lower revenue they have got from streaming versus physical album sales, but most of them still go along with it because even a small share of something is better than most of their music being accessed for free. This raises a potentially unpopular idea. That it might not be streaming that's broken. It might be the movie industry that's broken. The golden age of streaming was never going to last because it was never meant to last. So it's time to learn how money works to find out why piracy is really making a comeback.
Yeah, and at some point you can't keep protecting old business models for failing to adapt to the new market. Wow, that was very well said by me. Wow, that sounded very good. Sometimes, you know, stuff comes out of my brain the way it's supposed to. You know, like if the market is adjusting and there's all these new technology that allows people to file share and copy movies and distribute things for cheap or free or whatever, you gotta stop protecting the old business model by making these things illegal and force the old businesses to adapt to the changing fucking marketplace, right? They have to figure out ways that allows them to still make a profit off what they're doing without putting a halt to the new technology, right? It's not my fault that my computer has the ability to record shit on it. You know what I mean? You have to put some type of encryption or something on your files that allows me to not do that, right? Rather than make it illegal for me to do that. That's dumb. That's fucking stupid. You have to change your business model. Don't fucking put regulations on me and the technology and my property because you want government to protect you for being a lazy piece of shit that doesn't want to figure out solutions to your problem. Right? There are several ways that musicians can make money besides streaming. You can throw a concert, right? Isn't that how most musicians make their fucking money anyway? Right? And I'm supposed to care about the drop in profits that musicians or artists are making when the record label that they're signed on doesn't give a fuck about them in the first place? Well, how about the record label? Why don't you pay your musicians more rather than put the blame on me for streaming their shit? Fuck
This
outta
video
here.
was made possible by iScanner. I was sorting through some old receipts for tax season, trying to remember which ones I still needed to file. Readable. Classic me to clean everything up.
skip.
Let me read the numbers again too. Whenever I'm scanning documents, average whatever version actually does what I with the link below, and make your paperwork just a little less painful. Netflix is the most dominant movie and TV streaming service in the world. It has over 300 million paying subscribers, and unlike a lot of its competitors, it's actually profitable. But from its very first days of online streaming, they knew they would eventually lose people back to piracy. They just really didn't care. And to see why, I'm sorry, but you are going to have to look at some financials. Last year, it made $8.7 billion in net income after taxes, which is extremely impressive. But it still makes it hard to justify the valuation of more than $500 billion. At that rate, shareholders would need 57 years for their investment to pay off, which is not a reasonable bet for a company in an industry that has only been dominant for a decade. 57 years ago, watching a movie looked like this. And in another 57 years from now, it's highly unlikely that we will still be watching movies through the current selection of streaming services. Now, most investors in this company aren't dumb. They know that Netflix can't make their money back with its current structure. What they are banking on is being able to offer a cheaper service that they can charge more for in order to fatten up those margins.
Let's not talk about my margins, by the way. Being nice and fat, that's a nice shirt. Do they make it for men?
Anyway, cutting content, raising prices, and pushing strange features like mobile games within the app are not some surprise new rollout. They are part of a development plan that the company knew it would have to implement since it started offering online streaming. It would just be a lot better if they could do it without competition. Now, on the expenses side, there is some good news. As technology improves, network infrastructure has become cheaper for the same capacity, which means the actual cost to stream videos to users is getting better every year. Netflix's cost of revenue adjusted for inflation has actually been stable since 2022, despite adding almost 100 million new users in that time. Included in those costs are the aforementioned servers and network infrastructure, but it also includes the cost to license and produce their own movies, TV shows, and games. Another big reason they're
So in other words, they started producing their own shit, which is totally cool, totally fine. But therefore, increasing the amount of money they would have to generate in order to make a profit. So they kind of are shooting themselves in the foot and expecting you to be responsible for it. I didn't ask Netflix to produce their own shows. They decided to do that. Why are they raising the price on me in order to cover their decision to produce their own shows and movies?
Their costs have been improving is because they just aren't licensing as much content as they used to, and that's for two reasons. The first was a business decision to cut down on a cost, especially for content that wasn't drawing in new users. The The second reason is simply because they can't get their hands on as many titles anymore, because independent studios have made their own streaming services and want to keep their biggest IPs exclusive, so they can force users to either switch to their platform or shell out for 2 or more streaming services. Netflix is slowly producing its own titles, but that hasn't caught up to the content they are losing from licensing. So then why does this mean that Netflix doesn't care about piracy? Well, publicly they say they do, of course, but piracy is going to hurt their competition a lot more than it's going to hurt them. If people can't find a movie or show on Netflix and then give up and pirate it, that didn't really cost Netflix any money, because the vast majority of content out there wasn't theirs to lose, and they most likely didn't spend the money producing it. A 2023 paper in the...
So in other words, Netflix is a pirating platform. They just have permission to show it. Isn't that crazy?
The Journal of Economic Behavior and Organization, titled Pirate and Chill, found that when movies moved off Netflix to another platform, piracy of that content increased by more than 20%. Now, first and foremost, that's an amazing name for a professional journal article. But apart from that, it showed why Netflix hasn't been too concerned with online piracy. In a now infamous quote from the company's chief content officer, they said that in order for Netflix to be successful, we need to become movie studios faster than movie studios can become us. Piracy that disproportionately hurt legacy movie studios and their libraries of content was not something that Netflix would encourage, but behind closed doors, they certainly weren't too sad it was happening. Another way to think about this is that obviously Amazon isn't encouraging shoplifting, but it's a problem that hurts their competition far more than it hurts them. Piracy has also been a handy little tool throughout the company's history. Back in 2013, it admitted to using data from online piracy sites to find out what was popular and therefore what was worth licensing. Okay, so Netflix doesn't care about the rise of piracy, but what about the actual Hollywood studios? Well, they obviously do, and they crack down on IP theft with furious anger, but they are in a difficult situation. They could send piracy back to the dark ages by reconcentrating their content onto a single easy platform. But at the moment, that would probably be Netflix, which a company like Disney would obviously not be willing to go along with after investing so much in their own service. If they keep competing though, they are just going to make the experience worse for everybody and probably lose more ground to the high seas.
Okay. Disney being anti-pirate and all this shit is fucking hilarious because the amount of shows that Disney has just hijacked and completely destroyed. I get it. They have the licenses or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But man, the amount of characters and storylines that they've just taken from the past and tried to recreate it in their own fucking way and just completely destroyed the character, destroyed the franchise, Star Wars. And then they have the nerve to tell you that you can't do the same thing. You can't take my movie and watch it for free, even though we took this entire universe, like the Star Wars universe, and destroyed it. I'm so confused about the how one is okay because they have a license to do it, but the other isn't okay because you didn't have their permission or something like that. It's baffling.
Now, for these companies, this whole fight could not be happening at a worse time. There is a reason why music studios were able to play nice and make their content available just about anywhere while movie studios were fighting to the death. Music is simply much cheaper to produce, and there are far more sources of alternative revenue beyond just directly selling a song or an album. Artists don't make as much from streaming as they would from a physical album sale, but they can make it up in tours, merchandising, and other licensing deals. On the flip side, movies have largely been getting more expensive to produce, while cinema attendance has never fully recovered from its dip during COVID. Ironically, one of the biggest theater releases of the past 5 years was actually for a music studio with the cinema release of Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. In the past, poor box offices wouldn't matter as much, because mid-budget movies could make a lot of their money back through DVD sales. But obviously, that's not really a thing anymore, so studios have put even more effort into pushing their streaming services to eventually make back the difference. It's a bold strategy, and there are hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap at stake, so executives really want to pretend that eventually it'll work out. But if it doesn't, there are some lessons to be learned from the music industry which didn't beat piracy. It just made it unnecessary. The first is that movies have simply become too expensive for the current market. Studios have recognized that people are only going to the movies for special occasion releases these days because it's expensive, the theater experience isn't that good anymore, and people can just wait a month and watch it for free on one of the streaming services that they were already paying for.
And this is, I think, the major part. For the past however many years, movies just fucking suck. Movies fucking suck. Everything is CGI, which, how the fuck do movies these days cost more to produce, but they look shittier? Dude, you can watch a movie from the 1980s or the 90s where there's no overusage of CGI, and it looks so much fucking better than the trash they're putting out these days. And they're just recycling the same stories over and over. Hey, it's Batman, but this time it's a different actor again. Like, movies suck, right? It's not that deep. It's really, I think this guy, okay, he's done the actual research, it seems like, so he probably knows the real answers. I'm just talking out my fucking ass. Okay, I get that. But I think he's overthinking it. Movies, TV shows, etc. have been trash the last few years. That's why nobody wants to see fucking movies. That's why nobody wants to use streaming services. It's garbage. Nobody wants to see fucking Superman 12. Like, and this time he's gay and black or something. Like, fuck no. Not gonna go to movies for that shit. The last time I went to the movies was to see the new Star Wars, the new Star Wars movie. The third version of the new ones, and that was a fucking mistake. I remember I smoked a blunt in the parking lot before going inside. That was my little ritual. I'd go to the movies, I'd smoke a little bit. I said blunt. I probably smoked out of a pipe because I don't fucking roll blunts, but it sounds cool. I smoked a blunt. And then I went in the movies to watch the Star Wars, and the movie sucked so bad that I was having a bad trip. My trip on weed was bad. It was, I like the sound coming out of the fucking speakers was like making me feel weird, and what I was watching was so cringy and so terrible that I wanted to get the fuck out of there, but I couldn't because I hate driving whenever I've smoked. It's uncomfortable. I don't like it. So I was like, you know what? I paid for the movie. I don't want to drive after I just smoked. So let me just fucking sit here and watch this shit. And it was the most uncomfortable experience I've ever fucking had because the movie sucked that fucking bad. That's why people aren't going to the movies. That's why people aren't watching your streaming services, because the product you're putting out fucking sucks. It's not this deep. That's my take on it, man.
Instead of making the whole thing cheaper and putting less of their eggs in a single basket, they have doubled down on producing mega blockbusters. Of the 20 most expensive movies ever made, 19 of them came out in the last 10 years after streaming was already mainstream.
That one. No, not The Force Awakens. Star Wars. The Rise of Skywalker. I think that was December 20th, 2019. No, it was the one after that. No, it was that one. That was the one. That was the one I saw in the theaters, and I was like, this movie sucks. I need to get the fuck out. And look at Jurassic World Rebirth, trash movie. Avengers Endgame, that one was okay. Like, people thought it was okay, but I thought it was cookie cutter superhero bullshit. The Force Awakens, trash. Age of Ultron, I saw that, trash. Solo, trash. Pirates of the Caribbean. All these movies are, their budget is so fucking high, but they're trash movies.
These figures also only count the production budget, not the marketing budget. And on the revenue side, the box office doesn't include the share paid out to movie theaters. With even extremely generous estimates of those arrangements, only about half of these releases made their money back. And some in particular, like the Marvel's Snow White, Dial of Destiny, and the latest Mission Impossible movie, are shaping up to be catastrophic losses. So far, studios have been able to justify these flagship productions to their investors by talking about their IP value, which can later be extracted by bringing in customers to their streaming platforms. But that isn't really happening. Customers who join because they want to watch a single movie didn't tend to stay subscribed for very long compared to those who enjoy a deeper library of mid-budget movies or TV shows. I don't know about you, but I tend to take my subscription to whatever streaming service is hosting The Office this month.
I will sometimes subscribe to Amazon. Well, first of all, sometimes they'll offer you a deal. I get a month of Prime for free. But sometimes I'll subscribe because I feel like watching old movies. Why do I feel like watching old movies? Because old movies are actually good. New movies suck. You're not going to get me to your streaming service by saying, we got the new Mission Impossible. The last 5 Mission Impossibles have been fucking trash. So that's not going to draw me in. it's just not.
Huge productions also put more strain on the business as these losses have to be made up somewhere, and that is more often than not increased prices, more ads, and worse overall service. Now, I would forgive you for not feeling too sorry for Hollywood studio executives, but they are really in a no-win situation here. The harder they push back against the changing media landscape, the harder they push people towards the high seas. So anyway, now might be a good time to shamelessly plug that these videos are being made available ad-free on Spotify. So if you would prefer to listen in or watch it over there, I have left a link in the description. And if you think it's just streaming services that have been getting so bad, go and watch this video next to find out why making junk makes so much money. And don't forget to like and subscribe to keep on learning how money works.
All right, cool. I probably talked way more than I should, and I probably didn't make any fucking sense. And probably a lot of you disagree with me and think I'm retarded or something like that. That's totally fine. Put it in the comments, man. Tell me your opinion, okay? But I've given my opinion, and subscribe to this guy's channel. Well, he's got 1.46 million subscribers. Fuck his channel. Subscribe to my no. I'm just saying, man. Like that. Yeah, that's my final take on it. Is like I think this guy has all the data and shit like that, so I understand he's looking at it from that perspective. But I'm looking at it from a customer's perspective. The reason why I stopped going to the movies is because the last few times I went to the movies have been very disappointing by the quality of the movie. Okay. The reason why I canceled all the streaming service because I was disappointed by the streaming services decisions, the business decisions to try to double dip into like having people subscribe and still playing ads and still asking for this much money if you want this type of service and splitting their services. Oh, you want to watch movies or do you want to watch TV shows? Do you want to do this? What do you want to do? You want to stream? Or it's just give me the flat fucking rate and include everything without ads. Right? The reason why I stopped that I stopped watching or wanting to pay for new movies with these extreme budget costs is because I think they're overinflating the cost of the movies for things that don't matter or look worse. I think CGI looks worse than building a fucking fake dog. You know what I mean? The CGI is cool for like backgrounds. Like if you want a shot of a dude in space, then yeah, CGI. Right? Explosions are okay, right? But they're making entire fucking characters CGI. Their superhero suits are CGI. Like people see that, or at least people like me, that takes me out of the movie. That removes the immersion and it puts me... I don't want to feel like I'm watching a movie when I'm watching a movie. I want to feel like I'm in the movie. I'm in the story. Right? And if you have too much CGI and all these fucking bullshit, that's not my fault. You're the one that decided to pay how much money to some computer guy to do that shit when you could have just had a couple prop guys make it and the movie would have been much better. That's the reason why I stopped watching those types of movies, streaming service. It has nothing to do with the fucking whatever this guy said. Well, it had a little bit to do with it, but that's my reason, right? You're putting out a trash product and then you're telling me that I have to pay more for it because you decided to increase your budget cost for whatever fucking reason because you want to pay your actors more or something. And then you want to get mad that I'm going to use a file sharing service to watch it and you want that to be illegal because you're too fucking lazy to change your business model to figure out how to make money with computer files. Nobody asked you to make your streaming service and nobody asked you to put your movie into a digital format to put it on the internet so that people can file share it. You did that. You did that. And now you want the world to believe that's a bad thing. Nah. Pirating is not bad. Bring back pirating.